you look for a partner, you have to look at their professional services and how they partner with you. You want a partner that's a step ahead of you, that can see forward and understand with a clear roadmap what you are trying to achieve and help you map your way to it so that your job as an HR professional is not to worry about the technology implementation, but it is more focused on making sure employees get to the place they need to go. When you're choosing a modern performance management solution, you will have many vendors that will offer at the highest of level things that you think are the core to what it means to become more of a continuous performance process in the organization. What you really do need to look for, though, is the configurability of it. When you're doing an implementation of a performance management solution, you're not trying to change or break any of the work styles that are positive cultural components of the organization. So it has to fit the way you work.
If you have a really strong technical team that has a lot of coders or has a lot of analysts, they might be able to build code to create the customizations that you want. But if you are on a smaller team or your expertise is in different areas, you probably want a product that you can configure without going into the code base and one that you can actually adjust as you're going through and making changes.
You are talking about millions of transactions annually in the system, from conversations to feedback to recognition. The vendor you choose needs to be able to prove that they can scale to support those types of loads on the system.
There's an analogy that I often use to explain how to think about scalability for performance management. When I'm watering plants in my house, I use a watering can. But when I go out to my backyard, I have a series of garden hoses that I can use to distribute water more effectively. But if I was working on a commercial farm, I would actually need a more professional irrigation system to be able to run different processes. And the same thing is true when you're thinking about performance management and the size of company that you are.
As an HR leader, if you're thinking outcome first, then you map it into the needs you may have. Those needs can be written in a format of like an RFP, and you can send it out to vendors, and they will match that to the features that they have. When you're choosing the right performance management solution, there are three things to look at. The first one is whether or not this is a vendor that is actually looking at a continuous performance process that is forward-looking, not backward-looking. Traditional software vendors in this space have built their entire solution architected around the notion of an annual performance review or half-yearly performance review. That backwards process of infrequent conversations makes it so that managers are typically very incapable of giving a fair and objective review.
You're going to need to move into a continuous performance management model sometime over the next several years, or bring in more elements of those into what you're doing today.
And that gets to the second topic, which is it puts bias into the performance process. There's this lack of collaboration or understanding of what the employee's been doing the whole year. And so that notion of continuous performance management, there's more to it than just words. There's the actual solution and how it works. And so you have to look for those ways in which the software encourages employees and managers to collaborate, communicate, connect regularly. And I would say the very last thing is all for HR. You have to look for solutions that reduce the cumbersome and painful administrative processes that you're already trying to get out of. Too much manual paperwork or clicking through things or weeding through data. It should get dramatically easier so that you spend your time focused on your workforce.
Some of the hallmarks that you can look for in vendors to see if they are thinking strategically and in the long term around what is best practice and how is this area of HR evolving is to look and see who are the subject matter experts or the thought leaders in-house. And from there, you'll get a really strong sense of, is this vendor going to actually be a partner with me as I look to improve and evolve? Or are they simply going to provide me with a solution that may or may not continue to evolve in the direction that HR best practices are moving in?
Look at the type of customers they already have and talk to them. Do those conversations where you can actually uncover exactly what it was like to use the technology and how successful they've been after. Those types of reference points can't be replicated by the conversations you have with the actual vendor.
When you're starting to think about selecting a vendor, some of the things that you need to consider are what are the system requirements that you need today, but balancing that also with what is possible. So not being completely stuck in the way that you're doing things today, but being open to changing some of those processes as well.
You do want to think about user experience, and you want to think about it both from the lens of your workforce and from the lens of HR. You should not have to have a drove of people analytics staff available, taking weeks at a time to mine the data to answer your questions. Most of the workforce questions you have are contingent on just getting frequent and continuous interaction on the system, and those reports should be at your fingertips at all times, and in fact, often actionably served up to you as they are delivered.
Something else that you're probably going to want to look into is how is this vendor looking at AI and how are they bringing it into their platform? Regardless of where you are in terms of implementing AI within your organization today, make sure that the vendor can turn on and off that functionality so that it meets your current security needs and requirements today. If you are moving into the space, there are a lot of questions that you can ask from a security standpoint to make sure that it's going to meet your security requirements and that it's going to be using data in a way that you feel comfortable with. Are you actually trying to improve what humans are doing within the platforms, or is it trying to remove a piece of workflow from human interaction, which could create more bias?
You need to also consider the data itself. Data alone doesn't answer questions. What is the story behind the data that you need. And the right partner will help you do that. Because they've been working for so long in the space, they understand what HR is trying to solve against. You should be able to find and uncover those stories that tell you how to better help the workforce retool, strengthen, and get better over time and develop. It should give insight into how manager and employee behaviors shape good interactions and ultimately lead to greater performance.
Follow-up questions happen in the blink of an eye. And if you actually can drill down into the data because you know where the dashboard is, you're going to be able to answer their questions and actually achieve some of the strategic goals that you want to because you're able to be more interactive in those conversations.
HR is redefining its role within the organization, and it's doing it using performance management software as an enabler. The technology is going to continue to rapidly evolve to meet employee needs better, but HR is the only organization that's uniquely able to capture all of that value and make sense of it and bring it to your workforce.